Some people post every meal, every trip, every smile. And others post nothing. No photos, no updates. No trace of themselves online, just silence. Have you ever noticed them? They're always there, liking, watching, quietly present, but never revealing a thing. You see their name pop up under your story, but you've never seen their face. Not once. And it makes you wonder, why? Are they hiding something? Are they shy? Or are they actually the most self-aware people among us? It's strange, isn't it? In a world where everyone's trying so hard to be seen, some people choose invisibility. But here's the thing. Psychologists say their silence speaks volumes. And not in the way you might think. Because sometimes silence online doesn't mean absence. It can mean protection, peace, or power. Think about it. When everyone is shouting for attention, the quiet ones stand out the most. They seem mysterious. Maybe confident, maybe lonely. Or maybe they've found something the rest of us haven't, the strength to live without needing to be seen. And what that silence reveals about human behavior might just surprise you. Before we go deeper into the psychology behind this silence, let's pause for a second and look at the title you clicked on. The psychology of people who don't post on social media. It's a simple phrase, but it pulls you in because your brain instantly tries to place itself inside it. You start thinking, wait, I know people like that, but why do they do it? Or maybe I'm one of them, what does that say about me? That's what makes this title powerful. It creates a mirror effect. It's not just about them, it's about you. It activates self-reflection, one of the strongest forms of human curiosity. The mind loves answers about itself. That's why personality quizzes and what type are you videos always go viral. Now, look at the thumbnail. People who don't post their photos. Visually, it's mysterious. A shadowed figure, maybe half turned away from the camera, surrounded by bright, noisy images of people showing off their lives. That contrast instantly triggers social tension. The viewer subconsciously thinks, everyone's showing, why are they hiding? That tension between visibility and invisibility is the emotional hook that keeps the viewer watching. So the title and thumbnail together don't just promise information, they trigger identity, anxiety, and self-comparison. In psychological terms, this taps into social identity theory, the human need to understand where we fit in, what our behaviors mean, and how others perceive us. Now that we've decoded the psychology behind the click, let's talk about the people behind the behavior. Because we've all noticed them, haven't we? That one friend who's always online but never posts. The family member who views every story but doesn't share a single update. Maybe you've scrolled through their profile, nothing, just a name, no selfies, no vacations, no smiling pictures. Just presence, quiet presence. And here's where it gets interesting. This isn't rare. In fact, studies show that a large percentage of social media users are observers, not posters. Studies show that a large percentage of social media users are observers, not posters. They're the silent majority, always watching, rarely engaging. But why? For some, it's fear of judgment, rejection, or not being good enough online. For others, it's peace. They've learned that not everything needs to be shared. And then there are those who find meaning in observation. They see, they listen, they absorb. Maybe they're not antisocial at all. Maybe they're just deeply aware. Have you ever wondered what silence actually means? Because on social media, silence is rarely empty. It's full of hidden emotions. When someone doesn't post, it's not always because they have nothing to say. Sometimes it's because they're thinking too deeply about what you might think. Let's start with the first layer, fear. Some people don't post because they fear judgment, the quiet fear that whatever they share won't be good enough. Maybe their photo isn't perfect. Maybe their life doesn't look exciting enough. Maybe deep down, they're tired of pretending. It has the same fear many of us carry, the fear of being seen but not accepted. And yet, silence can also be a form of control. When you choose not to post, you're choosing what the world gets to see and what it doesn't. You're taking back power from a system that constantly demands your attention. Because the truth is, every post, every story, every like, it's all a performance. And some people simply step off the stage. They realize that not everything needs to be shared to have value. Their silence isn't insecurity. It's intentional privacy. But here's the twist. Silence can also come from confidence. Real, quiet confidence. Think about it. The people who don't need to prove anything are often the ones who stay the most silent. They don't crave validation because they've already found something deeper. Inner approval. They've understood something most of us forget. That peace doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. Now here's the paradox. The same behavior, not posting, can mean fear in one person, control in another, and confidence in someone else. That's what makes this psychology so fascinating. You can't always tell who's hiding and who's simply at peace, and maybe that's the point. Maybe silence in a noisy world has become the new form of expression, not an absence, but a statement. Because when everyone's trying to be seen, those who choose to stay unseen might just understand visibility better than the rest of us. Here's the truth most of us don't want to face. When we see someone who never posts, never shares, never shows, it unsettles us. We start wondering why. But that question says more about us than it does about them. Because their silence challenges something we've quietly built our lives around: visibility. We've grown so used to being seen, liked, and validated that we've forgotten how to simply exist without an audience. And when someone steps away from that system, it makes us uncomfortable, almost exposed. It's like they're re-breaking a social contract we didn't even realize we signed. Think about it. When was the last time you experienced something beautiful and didn't feel the urge to post it, to prove it, to show the world that you were happy? That's not vanity, that's psychology. It's our brain craving acknowledgement, a hit of dopamine through hearts, comments, and attention. It feels like connection, but often it's confirmation. So when we meet someone who doesn't play that game, someone who doesn't need that validation, it stirs something inside us. Part envy, part admiration, part confusion. Because deep down, a quiet voice whispers, what if they've found something I've lost? What if they're free? Their silence forces us to confront our own noise, our constant need to share, to prove, to belong. It's a mirror we didn't ask for, but one we can't look away from. And maybe that's the real reason we keep watching videos like this. Not just to understand them, but to understand ourselves. Because behind every post, every story, and every like, there's a simple human truth. We all want to be seen, but not everyone needs to be. And perhaps the ones who've stopped chasing visibility have started finding something deeper: peace. Maybe silence isn't emptiness. Maybe it's energy being saved. Because in a world where everyone is rushing to speak, to post, to prove, the quiet ones conserve something powerful: attention. See, attention is the most valuable currency of our time. And those who can control it, not just others, but their own, hold a kind of strength most people have forgotten. While the world screams for validation, they choose observation. While others perform, they reflect. And while everyone's chasing visibility, they've already found clarity. Their silence is not a weakness, it's awareness. It's the realization that life is still happening beautifully, even when no one is watching, because maybe true confidence isn't in showing more. It's in knowing you don't need to. And perhaps that's the quiet superpower of people who don't post. They're not hiding. They're healing. They're not disconnected. They're deeply connected, just in a different way. Connected to reality, to presence, to themselves. There is a rare kind of peace that comes from not needing an audience, the peace of being content without applause. And that kind of peace is magnetic. It doesn't shout. It doesn't seek. It simply is. So the next time you notice someone who never posts, don't assume they're missing out. Maybe they've just found what the rest of us are still looking for: stillness, clarity, freedom. So maybe now, when you see someone who never posts, you'll see them differently, not as distant, not as secretive, but as someone who has simply chosen a quieter kind of connection. Because silence in a world addicted to noise isn't a flaw, it's a form of wisdom. It's what happens when someone no longer needs to prove that they're living, because they are. And maybe that's the hidden beauty of this whole conversation. We've spent years trying to be visible, trying to be liked, trying to be remembered. But the truth is, real peace doesn't need witnesses, it just needs presence. So if you're someone who posts every day, that's okay. And if you're someone who rarely does, that's okay too, because the point was never to disappear. It was to understand yourself a little better. And in that understanding you find balance, between sharing and savoring, between showing and simply being. Because at the end of the day, whether you post or not, what really matters isn't how many people see your life, but how deeply you live it. And maybe, just maybe, that's the kind of visibility that truly lasts. Beat. If this made you think, take a quiet moment before you scroll again, reflect, and maybe for once, just be If you've watched until this point, thank you. You didn't just listen to a video, you shared a moment of reflection. Because in a world that moves too fast, taking a few quiet minutes to think, to feel, to understand is rare, and yet that's exactly what you did. If this video made you pause, even for a second, I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Tell me, are you someone who rarely posts? Or someone who's learning to find peace away from the noise? Your story might help someone else see themselves a little more clearly. That's how understanding grows. Not from shouting louder, but from listening softer. And if you like to keep exploring the quiet side of psychology, the little truths about how we think, feel, and connect, then you can stay part of this space by subscribing. No pressure, no noise. Just honest thoughts, gentle ideas, and real conversations. Because sometimes, it's not about being the loudest voice online. It's about being the one that feels the most human. So thank you for being here, for feeling, not just watching. And until next time, stay kind, stay curious, and maybe stay a little quiet.